Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Monday, October 3rd. I love October. I love the fall. I love the colors. I love the coolness. I am in my happiest place of all, which I thought, hey, good morning, Elise. Good morning. Good morning. Hi, whoever shows up, if you want to say hi in the chat, let me know you're here. That would be awesome. I am stoked and excited this morning because I was just saying that it's October. It's the fall, my favorite time of the year. I am energized. I love the chilliness. It feels amazing. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. And so, because this is such a happy time for me, I thought, hey, why don't we speak about happiness? Good morning. Today's my goddaughter's birthday. Very happy to have this happy live on this special day. Oh, Sabi, wonderful. Yay. Happy birthday to your goddaughter. That's awesome. How old is she, Sabi? Is she a little peanut or is she a teenager? Tell me how old she is in the chat. Yes, Elise, I'm glad. Yes, the fall transitions. Exactly, transitions. And boy, oh boy, we are in times of transitions. We just, hey, Chua, hi, Anne Marie. Hello, hello. Good morning. Welcome. 3 years old. Oh my God, 3 years old. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being 3 years old today? I mean, if anything, we owe it to ourselves to really create a better environment for our 3-year-olds, right? For those who are celebrating their 3-year-old birthdays today. So it's up to us to change, to bring in more happiness and all of these components that really influence, increase mind body connection and alignment. Amen. Yes. Okay. We're on full force. So I'm going to do my short intro that I have written out for these. Now, this morning, there's something a little bit different because I'm actually going live. I'm trying new things. I'm going live this morning on this page, on my personal page, and on Art of Alignment page. So I'm just throwing it out there. We're testing things. I think next week I'm going to be able to broadcast live Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you to my amazing assistant, Nelson, who has been really helping me to grow my social media presence. And so next week, I think I'm going to be broadcasting from 4 or 5 different social media outlets. I'm going for it, you guys. Okay. So good morning. Good morning. Welcome to this week's Duchêne Method Hour. I'm changing the lingo. We're going into the Duchêne Method Hour, where I invite you into our sacred circle of creation to acknowledge, engage, and support one another into discussing topics related to mind-body alignment. And today's topic is about happiness. Without any further ado, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think about this seriously for a few seconds and respond in the chat if it's appropriate for you. So I'm going to ask you directly, straight up, immediately, first of all, are you happy overall in your life? Are you happy? And if you are not, if you would not consider someone that has a disposition of happiness, of being happy overall, I want to ask you, why not? What happens to you in your life when you are not happy? And I want you to give me a little bit of interaction this morning. Let's get to it. Let's get into the groove of really engaging, being in conversation around these topics. So when you are not happy, why not? And I'll tell you, for me, if I'm not happy, usually for me, one of the big things that affects my level of happiness is when I'm sick. I had COVID past December. 2 weeks ago, I had some crazy stomach bug for 5 days, which is so unusual for me because I don't usually get sick. And I am really not happy when I'm sick. This is a big thing for me. I tend to be someone who prides herself in being energetic, enthusiastic. And if I'm sick, I'm not happy. One of the reasons. So I want to know, what are some of the reasons why you might find yourself unhappy, not happy? And what I want you to notice is that whatever reason we give for not being happy has a lot to do with external forces. Have you ever noticed that? If we tend to be unhappy, a lot of the time it's because someone might have said something to us. We are in a breakup period of our lives, either with a partner or a friend. We got fired from our job. We feel unhappy because we don't have the type of body we want. Sabi says, I feel happy, and the moments I don't feel happy is when I focus on what lacks in life instead of what I have gratefulness in the present. Makes me really happy. Yeah, gratefulness in the present makes me really happy. Yes, thank you, Sabi. Exactly. So a lot of the time, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Yeah, so what makes us unhappy, what touches us, is usually external forces. It's something that's happening outside of us that affects us and that we allow to make us unhappy. Because the truth is, that's one piece of our life that we are always in charge of. That happiness, different than joy. Happiness is different than joy. I was generally happy with life. Elise says, I get unhappy when things don't go the way I want them to. Yes, I understand, Elise. I'm also not happy when things don't go the way I want them to. So notice, those are external forces, aren't they? What I want to share with you today, and what I hope to promote with doing these lives and with you and in our interactions, what I hope to promote is to really start to dig deeper into what it is that aligns us, what it is that creates more mind, body, spirit, and emotional health, what helps to support us in the foundation of our lives. There are many tools out there. Ultimately, though, the most important tool that we have to generate happiness in our lives, it's us. You know, at the end of the day, there is so much that is dependent on us, even when we're sick. Even when I was sick, of course, you're miserable when you're sick. It's not like you're going to be happy, happy, joy, joy. And also, the truth is, we need a range of emotions to be fully human. That makes sense, of course. I'm not suggesting we should be happy all of the time. What I am suggesting is that we have access to happiness all of the time. That's very different, because you can shift your mindset in a moment should you decide to bring yourself to center, even when sick. And I'm going to be the first to practice that the next time I'm sick, and I'm going to knock on wood that that doesn't ever happen again. But should it, I'm in charge. I'm in charge of deciding, okay, I'm going to calm down. I'm going to get myself centered. This too shall pass. And I did some research and some really great information. Excuse me. And there has been some great information that has arisen over the past few years on the topic of happiness, and also around positive psychology. And I wanted to share with you first. For me, what I'm really interested in is about this mind-body alignment and how these emotional conditions or states that we use, that we practice, help us to balance our physiology. So happiness, here's the interesting first part. Happiness is inextricably linked to having strong social ties and contributing to something bigger than yourself. So to contribute to the greater good. The professional jargon, when we talk about happiness, includes words like flow, optimism, resilience, courage, virtues, energy, flourishing, strengths, curiosity, meaning, subjective well-being, forgiveness, and even joy. Happiness is correlated to the idea of trying to build something with others or to build relationships. So right off the bat, it seems that happiness has to do with our social structures of sharing with others, of being in relationship, and also of contributing to the greater good. Physiologically, happiness activates the sympathetic nervous system. At least you know all about that. The sympathetic nervous system is what stimulates the fight, flight, or freeze response. Happiness produces physiological changes in the body, such as, it's called positron emission tomography, PET test, and functional MRI tests show activity in the left prefrontal cortex, which, when stimulated, people feel more positive. Optimism, a contributing factor for happiness, is also linked to brain function. So it's not too much to say that optimism is really a healing mechanism, a foundational healing mechanism, because if you physically, meaning your thinking process, if you start to focus on what's working, on positivity, well, that's where your energy goes naturally, and you tend to move away from what's not working, hence negative thoughts, negative actions. And this is super important, especially in relationship, because isn't it interesting how through this study, happiness is found in our linkages, in our families, our friends, our social circle. People who have healthy social circles tend to be happier. And at the same time, those same social circles is where, because we tend to get closer, there can be some negativity that shows up in those circles. So optimism is like oxytocin. Yeah, exactly. And optimism is also a choice. So today I really wanted to integrate the idea that happiness is a physiological healing mechanism for us. And what helps to raise our level of happiness is optimism. So optimism, to look at the glass half full, to really make this a daily practice, because if you have that superpower, if you are able to look at life from an optimistic perspective, especially now, and I say this, I say especially now, and at the same time, this type of situation in the world, yes, it's pretty bad right now overall globally, but it's been pretty bad globally throughout history for a long time, for hundreds of years, since the beginning of time. So this is kind of like my optimistic view of what's going on right now. It's like, yeah, things are hard, things are tough, and it will be a hot day in hell before I stop being happy based on external circumstances. For sure, there are moments when we are challenged, for sure. And if we cultivate happiness and optimism, well, you get to combat the negativity. And also, it's a really, really wonderful tool for self-development, to really take hold of your life. If you have a tendency to gossip about people, or if you hear others gossiping about people, and to find the art of mindful communication coming from the center of your heart and soul, to really be able to say, I'd really prefer not to talk about this person if they're not here, if they're not present. So your actions, what you decide, the type of person that you decide to be in this world, here's why I love it. Here's why I love optimism and happiness and choosing these things, is because you change the environment around you. It's not just you, it's the environment around you. And if we don't start with us, if we don't matter, and we do, that's an optimistic perspective. I matter in the world. There is a reason why I'm in the world. I have something to do in this world. I have something to offer in this world. That perspective of optimism shifts your neurotransmitters, increases the level of happiness in your body, of course, increases oxytocin as it moves through your physiology, and therefore your outlook tends to be more positive. Optimism is a tool, is a foundational tool for healing mechanism. And you all know what I'm talking about. This is not rocket science, but there's a difference between speaking about it and between actually doing it. And we have to start by looking at ourselves. You have to be honest. You have to break down this veil of illusion and looking at how other people are wrong, or how other people are not doing things the right way, or why your family members might be the problem. I am strongly convinced that I'm in charge 100% of the time of how I choose to interact in the world. And this is proving to be very helpful for me, as I move forward in life and I'm getting older, I tend to feel happier. I tend to feel more secure, no matter what's going on in the world. I tend to feel like there are more possibilities for me because I'm focusing, my laser focus is on optimism. Even if I don't make it to the gym every day and I feel upset that I didn't get my workout in, I shift it and I go, you know what? I did the best that I could today. And so this is why being able to integrate this perspective of optimism really helps to heal you from the inside out. There are physiological affectations in your physiology when you choose to focus on optimism, which is a foundational healing tool to create happiness in your life. Hey, my brother and sister-in-law are here. Yay. They were supposed to work for the voting team this morning. Don't know what happened, but I'm so happy you're here. Bienvenue. Salut, Christiane. Salut, Gérald. Awesome. Okay. So moving right along. By the way, before I move on, is this making sense for you? If it makes sense, please give me a number 1 comment and say number 1. And if it doesn't make sense, give me a number 2. But if it makes sense, give me a number 1. En PM seulement. Ah, OK, j'ai compris. Cool. Bon, ben alors, bienvenue. It's super great that you're here. I'm excited. Okay, 1. Somebody feels that what I'm saying is making sense. Awesome. Anne-Marie, I can only see chats from Chua and myself. Number 1. Oh, yeah, I don't know why that's happening, Elise. I think because the other members may not have signed on through StreamYard. I'm still working on figuring that out. So anyone who signs on, if you can sign on through StreamYard, you should have access to that on my pages. I'm experimenting with technology, right? So if you're on the Art of Alignment Creative Leadership group page, you should sign on through StreamYard. And let's see what happens. I'm still figuring out one technology piece at a time. It's a lot, but I don't care. I'm just going for it anyways. Oh, Sebi, I signed on StreamYard and I still don't understand why it doesn't work. Sorry. Yeah, it's not your fault, Sebi. I have to figure that out too. Nelson and I will figure it out. as we move along. But thank you for sharing that you can't see the other participants, because the whole idea is that I want to create a circle of creation of connection so that we can all share with one another. Okay, we're going to deal with what is today. Thank you for being here. Hang in there. Hang in there. Choose to be happy, increase your oxytocin, and get into optimism of our live today. At least I'm broadcasting from 3 different Facebook platforms, so that's a plus. We're moving in the right direction. All right, my friends. So we talked about how happiness activates the sympathetic nervous system, which stimulates the flight or fight freeze response. Within the brain, the anterior cortex and the amygdala, tiny little gland in the brain, the amygdala, becomes more active when we think about positive events. This is a good thing. When we think about positive events, you activate your amygdala in a positive way. Research demonstrates that the neurotransmitter dopamine plays an important role in happiness because it mediates transfer of positive emotions. Happiness is also associated with lower levels of cortisol and therefore helps to build a stronger immune system and less stress. So who doesn't need less stress in their life? There's good stress and there's bad stress. Most of us struggle with that. But cultivating optimism, looking at the glass half full, increasing your quality of how you filter information through your brain. It's so important because, as you well know, subconsciously, we have patterns. And this is what we work on so much in this work, right? We look at our patterns. How can we start to transform our patterns in order to increase the quality of our lives, which of course is associated with happiness? Well, practicing optimism is a real good one. You just have the power to shift your vision and stop talking negatively about things. So, that expression, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything. My mother used to tell me this, right? If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything. And as I get older, I find it to be a very worthwhile practice. If I have nothing nice to say, let me hold back. Instead, what I try to do now is to really focus on what is something that I could say that is hopeful, optimistic, positive. Even when it's hard, especially our political climate, right? What can I say that's positive about our political climate? Well, one of the things I could say that's positive is I am grateful that we are going through this transition globally, politically, because it is forcing us citizens to really step into the arena. Everybody, right? Every government wants their people to vote. Yeah, of course, because they can't do it on their own. We have, in my opinion, let it go for too long. We have to re-engage, such as what my brother is doing it, my sister-in-law is doing it, my other sister, Joanne, is also doing it. She's working for the elections today. And so people get involved. That's how we start to change things in the world. We involve ourselves. And right now, there's no better time to involve ourselves on a political level, even if it's a phone call, even if you contribute some time to helping elections. It's a great idea. Okay, so moving right along. So happiness is associated with lower levels of cortisol and therefore a stronger immune system and less stress. All of the research that I have found around happiness is related to our social circles. In other words, when we have people that we love in our life, companions, family, friends, colleagues, it tends to raise our level of happiness. And I'm going to give you a quick story because It happened to me, I think it was yesterday. I called my sister-in-law and my brother who are with us today, this morning, because I'm going to go to Montreal in a few weeks. I have a dance show that I'm going to go support one of my friends in, and it happens to coincide with my brother's birthday that is this month. So I thought, well, I'm going to be in Montreal. I would love to see them because it makes me happy to see them. And then we can celebrate my brother's birthday. And of course, I called my two other sisters and I said, well, I'm going to be in Montreal. We're going to celebrate my brother. I'm sure it would be great if you came. And so both of them were like, oh, this is great. Yes. And so I personally felt much happier after connecting with them because I love them, because I felt like there's this deep layer of relationship, of connection that happens with family and friends. And it just kind of helped me to get through my day with more joy in my heart, because I know that in a few weeks I have plans to see everyone. So it's a very simple example, but whenever I start to feel a little bit lonely or disconnected, I'll pick up the phone. I'll call my sister-in-law, my brother, my sisters, my brother, my other brother, and just to touch base. I'll also do that with my friends, because what happens is that helps to create more happiness in my heart, because I feel like I belong somewhere. I feel like I'm connecting with people who also love me. And so that's the baseline, that's the foundation, to use happiness and optimism as that tool to regulate our nervous system, to diminish levels of stress. When we feel loved and appreciated, it helps to lessen our levels of stress. Elise writes, altruism, giving, volunteering also produces happiness. Yes, exactly. I think that when my brother and sisters are contributing to the elections, right? They're volunteering their time. I had a feeling speaking with them that it does raise their level of happiness because they're contributing to their environment. And that's one of the first things that I found in the research, is through extending ourselves to companions, to friends, and contribution, it raises our level of happiness. And when we feel happy, naturally, our tendency is to view things with more optimism. You see, they're interlinked. Sabi says, yes, it does help so much to support in both ways. Last Friday, I was in low energy and I still felt like going to a concert to support my friends. I went out from that concert with so much joy. Exactly. I know exactly what that feels like. Sometimes we get lazy. We don't want to go out. We don't want to go to the concert. We don't want to meet up. I think that through making effort, that's another big word, through cultivating happiness, is to make an effort. Extend yourself as much as possible. I know for me, for so much of my life, I've been working and been in a busy mode. And now as I'm getting older, I'm really looking at, I appreciate everything that I did in my life. And I also want to be able to support more, by the way, which is why I'm doing these lives, because I want to be able to gather a group of people whom we can share and sit together. And it takes time. It takes time to cultivate an audience. It takes time to cultivate people who want to be in a group, who want to make an effort and show up. Which is why, of course, I so appreciate you being here, because you're making an effort to support me and to be in this circle of creation and hopefully interact with one another, which tends to raise our level of happiness because we feel that we belong to a circle. We are part of a community. So effort is a big deal. Make an effort in your life, right, to support others in whatever way it works. And I really appreciate what you wrote, Sabi, because yeah, me too. A lot of the time I'll be invited to go out or to go see something, and I'd rather stay home cozy on my couch. And then I think, but this person would so appreciate my support if I showed up. And of course, like you said, I get happier. I get just as much. I receive just as much, if not more, than what I put out. So you see how tangible, how easy it is to actually be in real contact with this physicality, with this physiological sensation of happiness by contributing, by connecting, by reaching out. Whoever's joining the live stream, if you want to say a little hello in the comments, I welcome you to do so we know who's here and we can encourage you and welcome you into our circle of creation this morning. Yes, Elise, take action, change your thoughts. Exactly. And sometimes it's not that easy to take action, isn't it? Sometimes we don't want to take action, which is why the friends and families and colleagues become so important, because they can help us to move out of that non-action taking place. And, we have to measure that, of course, energetically. We don't want to go overboard and get exhausted. And at the same time, to make an effort, do something today that will benefit someone else, because you get to benefit from a sense of fulfillment, happiness, and optimism. And that's how it works. It's a domino effect. There is nothing more true than what Margaret Mead, the great anthropologist Margaret Mead, once said: never underestimate the power. What is it? Never underestimate the power of a small group of people. Indeed, it is the only thing that matters, the only thing that can change the world, something to that effect. Never underestimate the power of a small group of people. That's who can change the world, us, one at a time. And cultivating happiness in your life is infectious. People around you feel that and they think about you and they're like, oh my God, of course, I'm so grateful you came. And people start to talk about you in a way that is, yes, she's so kind. She's so happy all the time. I love being around her because of her energy. It's quite easy to cultivate it. We just have to choose it. It's a choice. People with strong ties to friends and family and commitment to spending time with them have the highest levels of well-being. Our journey to happiness is one we make with companions. One of the most important and rewarding experiences of our lives is the love and friendship we share with those who are dear to us. We most often share positive relationships with our friends, spouses, and other family members, but our circle may also include coworkers, teachers, and anyone else with whom we are in regular contact. So I want to actually throw out a little challenge for you this week until next week. And I'd love to have you reach out to someone in your life that has touched you. Someone in your life that has increased the quality of your own life. To reach out, maybe it's an old teacher or a mentor or a colleague that helped you make a great decision while you were at that company, or you might still be there. This is what we're talking about, by the way, Elise. Take action, change your thoughts by taking action like this. And I'm always inviting you to take action, because it's through action that things shift. It's not through non-action. So this week, I want to invite you to reach out to someone that has touched you in your life, that has made a difference in your life, and just express your appreciation and love for them. That will increase the quotient of their happiness. And is there anything more wonderful than to reach out to someone out of the blue? You could even write a letter, whatever's most appropriate, but let someone know that you appreciate them this week, that you love them, and help them increase their level of happiness. It's so infectious. In 2002, two pioneers of positive psychology, Ed Diener and Martin Seligman. Martin Seligman is really the big cheese when it comes to positive psychology evolution. They conducted a study at the University of Illinois on the 10% of students with the highest scores recorded on a survey of personal happiness. They found that the most salient characteristics shared by students who were happy and showed the fewest signs of depression were their strong ties to friends and family and commitment to spending time with them. And I love that last part, and commitment to spending time with them, because here we're talking about effort, aren't we? In one study, people were asked on random occasions about their mood. They were found to be happiest when they were with friends, followed by family members, and least happy if they were alone. Another study constructed a scale of cooperativeness. For example, how willing people were to constructively engage in activities with others. This study showed that the cooperativeness of an individual was a predictor of their happiness, though it did not conclusively show if their cooperation resulted in happiness or the other way around. Another study on the quality of relationships found that to avoid loneliness, people needed only one close relationship coupled with a network of other relationships. That's super interesting. So Sabi has a question. I love the challenge of the week of appreciation. Anne-Marie, I've got a question concerning health and happiness. These times my digestion is very fragile. Still, I went to a Korean festival and the food smells so good. The music so good. I knew it wasn't supposed to be the food I should eat these times. And still, I was so much happy in that environment that I decided to eat what I wanted without restriction. And I was able to digest perfectly everything. Would happiness, let's see, would happiness, I think you cut out there. Would happiness influence? I think your question is, would happiness influence your digestive system? I don't have any straight data to give you about it, but if you ask me, 100%. 100%. I know it sounds a little out there, but I'm convinced of this. And, you know, I'm guessing maybe that the food that you ate was not necessarily bad for your system. So it's an interesting component, because I know how much you love Korean culture. So if your immune system, doesn't it make sense? Let's just look at it from a make sense perspective. If your immune system is healthier, stronger, if there is no stress in your system, if you are feeling happy, and if you are with friends where you feel supported and you're in an environment that you love and you're trying different foods that you might have never tried in your life before, even though you're having digestive problems and this doesn't give you a digestive problem, I don't have the hard data right now, but I'm quite sure that your level of happiness, because your immune system feels stronger, is going to have a correlation. See, the one thing that I get a lot in my practice, I've been practicing in my own practice for over 15 years now, and I will have clients come in and they will say to me that they went to their doctor, and the doctor, they had a tooth infection, for example, and the person was having digestive problems, and the doctor says there's absolutely no correlation between the tooth infection and the intestine. I mean, to me, that's, I always refer them out to a different doctor, basically, because it doesn't make sense. Of course, if you have an infection in your mouth, it's going to affect your gut. This whole system that we're living in is a weaving of connective tissue. It's a system of internal communication. Connective tissue and fascia is the blood flow of your body. All of the information, your thinking process, your emotions, your physiology, your respiratory system, your cardiovascular system, your blood system, nervous system, all work through this process, through this connective tissue information that goes throughout your whole body. So how is it that if you have a tooth infection, that would not affect your intestine? Or sometimes people will come in and they have an imbalance in their hips or their lower back hurts. And so I will naturally start working on their feet to help them create a more solid foundation to hold themselves up more appropriately. And 9.5 times out of 10, if I work on your feet, your back feels better. Well, how is that possible? Because there is an intricately linked system called connective tissue, your fascial system, or the interstitium, as it's known more in medical environments, that travels throughout your entire body and helps you to create balance in your body. So my answer to your question, Sabi, is the proof is in the pudding. If you were out there having a good time and somehow you ate foods that would have ordinarily upset you and didn't, why don't we consider that a happiness factor because you were so happy and lighthearted and your immune system was supported? Why wouldn't you have been able to digest it properly? I mean, a lot of this is common sense. And again, I don't have the scientific data for this, but in my experience as a practitioner for over 15 years, I can tell you that so many of my clients who have had IBS problems, bowel problems, digestive problems, palpitation problems in their chest and heart is correlated to their level of stress. Therefore, there's a correlation to happiness, to negativity or positivity, to being in a state of worry, of fear, or of being able to self-regulate so that you diminish levels of anxiety in your body. And absolutely, if you're anxious and you're worried and you're scared, that increases internal inflammation in your body, therefore produces pain. So your bowels might inflame, your intestines might inflame, you might have a hard time breathing. Your diaphragm is not fully operational because you tend to breathe on a much lower scale. You're not using the full capacity of your lungs and diaphragm. That's what stress does in the body. So in your case, it seems like you were stressless in that moment. So I hope that this makes sense. Give me a thumbs up or a 1, Sabi, if that makes sense. And thank you for the question. I will do more research and find out the scientific data, because for me, it just makes sense that there's a correlation. On happiness, to form a close relationship. So we're going to go a little bit into intimacy. How happiness helps to increase our levels of intimacy. So to form a close relationship requires a growing amount of self-disclosure, meaning share more intimate information with one another. The willingness to reveal one's personal issues and feelings. Without that self-disclosure, people with friends still feel lonely. In fact, the study found that some students who had many friends were still plagued by loneliness, and this seemed to be related to their tendency to talk about impersonal topics, such as sports and pop music, instead of their personal lives. Self-disclosure has been shown to positively affect areas of the brain associated with positive emotions and intrinsic rewards, and may relieve feelings of depression and negative thinking by inducing feelings of safety. In this way, self-disclosure appears to be related to social support. Self-disclosure alone does not increase well-being. So it's not about just talking about your intimate stuff to anyone. There has to be a sense of social support and safety. Having a good, close social network at work and maintaining low marital distress also play a beneficial role in one's happiness and life satisfaction. Supportive communication practices and social support also play important roles in well-being. Good supportive communication, which includes listening carefully with no other purpose than to understand another, helps establish and strengthen relationships. All right, another pop quiz question for you. How many times do you find yourself in conversation with someone, especially if the conversation is a little tense? You're having a conversation with someone and you're already responding to what they're saying. In other words, you're having a conversation with someone, but instead of fully listening to them, your brain goes into creating the answer that you're going to give them. So if we're honest, we can probably establish that we do that often enough. Instead of fully listening to another, we're already creating the answer. And so this has a lot to do with, of course, lack of presence, lack of choosing to be mindful. And this is also the piece we talked about earlier in exerting effort, meaning you pull yourself out of the equation and you stand there and you simply listen to the other person without having an opinion about it. That's a skill. That's an art form. Exactly. I do that all the time and have to interrupt myself. Yeah, thank you, Elise. Beautiful. So what you are modeling actually is mindful awareness, because it's a natural thing. We do that as humans, especially if it's someone that tends to be a little bit more difficult, right? It could be a friend, a family member, and they tend to, let's say, have a negative outlook. Or sometimes this happens with me too. You know, I'll have a friend and they'll say something, and the first thing that comes to my mind is like, oh my God, like, can't you see beyond this? Like, my judgment arises, right? Like, can't you see, like, there are 5 other possibilities that you could focus on instead of focusing on it in this way. So my thinking pattern has already hijacked me. So I don't listen to them. And I already am constructing an answer as to how I'm either going to tell them a better way to do it. Doesn't that happen? How we get into our internal coaches and you start to tell the other person, oh, but wait, you should explore this and you should explore that. I'm probably, the queen of that. Sabi, I don't do that often with my friends, and I tend to do that with my dad as a reflex. Yeah, excellent. Well, probably because your dad triggers you. I don't know that there is anyone in our lives that is more triggering or that might have been more triggering than our parents or our siblings, right? Sometimes because they know us and they'll say something and you're like, oh, that hurt, or they just don't understand. So the interesting thing about building happiness and healthier relationships is to also learn to cultivate this position of being able to listen and to hear what another person has to say without constructing an answer. Because if you're doing that, you're not really listening to what they're saying. And because that's true, then we're not really present and we don't really open our hearts of compassion. And we don't really make an effort into listening into the other person's speaking, to listen into the other person's speaking. This has been one of the most amazing tools for me in my life because I've been a coach my whole life. So my natural tendency is to be able to help someone and give them some advice or give them insight into what's possible. And through a lot of the mindfulness training that I've done, I've really learned to take a step back. And what does it mean to be a mindful and eloquent communicator is really to learn how to listen with more presence without already starting to think about what you're going to tell the other person. So one component for a foundational skill to improve your level of happiness or increase and the other person is to learn how to become a better communicator, which means a better listener. Really listen to what another is saying, because whenever people speak, especially if people speak harshly, especially if people speak from a place of blame and shame, or they're trying to blame another, or if people gossip, there is a deep, profound tunnel of hurt. There's a lot of wounding in people who speak negatively of others. They're clearly not happy, isn't it? So one of the ways that we can support more people in our lives towards optimism, towards having a sense of happiness, is truly to model, to be the model that you want to see in the world, isn't it? Be the change you want to see in the world. So much easier said than done, and still completely doable by starting to focus on what ingredients increases the level of happiness in your life, which is, we talked about it, optimism. One of the tools is optimism. Start to look at life through an optimistic lens, no matter what's happening. Because if you're not happy, you are being affected by external forces. And I'm saying happiness is an inside job. Start to look at life through an optimistic lens. What's possible? What's working? What is good today? What could I do to enrich the quality of my neighbor's life today? Contribution, right? Optimism, contribution, and effort. Optimism, contribution, and effort. That's how we cultivate happiness from the inside out. Optimism, contribution, and effort. Make an effort to do something for someone today, to reach out to someone today, to let them know that you appreciate them, to increase their level of happiness, because it's infectious. As soon as you do that, that person, naturally what tends to happen, not only does their quotient of happiness increase, their energy in their environment starts to shift, because they're going to call someone and say, do you know that my student from 10 years ago called me today to say thank you, that they appreciated what I did for them? That's how we start to shift the world. Margaret Mead is right. Never underestimate that a small group of people can actually have huge consequences in the world for the better. Listening without judgment also signals a willingness to be influenced. This is interesting. Listening without judgment also signals a willingness to be influenced, thereby making us and our cherished worldview vulnerable to influence. So this piece, we're talking about intimacy, about being able to lay your heart on the table, so to speak, to be able to demonstrate an openness to change, makes our relationships stronger. In addition to good listening, another communication technique is a valuable relationship builder: active, constructive responding. This is magic right here. Active, constructive responding. Active, constructive responding is more than active listening, okay? Tap in here. This is good stuff, okay? Active constructive responding involves enthusiastically engaging in the topic or issue raised by your conversation partner. For example, active constructive responding looks like this. Imagine a friend tells you their child received a prestigious award at school. Active listening might include a smile and a congratulatory response. Active constructive responding would also include follow-up questions into the specifics of the competition and the implications of the award. The follow-up conversation shows your enthusiasm and sharing of your friend's joy and pride. It also helps your friend re-experience the excitement of the event and is a very effective way to cultivate positive emotions and deepen relationships. This specific communication practice can help people to feel more understood. And what do we all want? We all want to be understood, isn't it? It also increases our satisfaction with social interactions and causes us to view our conversation partners as more socially attractive. Happiness isn't only gained from the social support provided to us. we may also increase our well-being by providing social support to others. There's a study that found that the more support provided to others, the more we provide support to others, the greater the decrease in mortality. Isn't that interesting? Further support for the power of relationships to improve our well-being was shown in another study that discovered loneliness created lower levels of meaning in people's lives and increased their levels of depression. So there's a difference, right, between being alone and feeling lonely. Being alone is a wonderful thing. Spending time by oneself is a wonderful thing. Loneliness is a different thing. So the whole point here, this new type of listening, the active, constructive responding, is also correlated to you making more of an effort. Meaning, when somebody shares something with you that is wonderful and you say, oh my God, this is so great, the active, constructive responding actually engages you more by making an effort in asking. So for example, my great nephew, they were playing hockey. I think it was last night, Christian, right? So they went and they played hockey. And I think it was one of my little nephews, Billy, they won their game, right? And so this is fantastic, right? So I'm so happy for them. And if I spoke to my niece about this, their mother, I would say something like, so, what happened? How did he score the goal? Was he by himself? Like, how did it happen? And so she gets to retell the story, which increases her level of happiness and excitement, and then bonds us closer together, because I went one step further in expressing my interest in her success, in her joy, in her happiness. It is deeply infectious. Active, constructive responding. All right, my friends, I'm almost out of time. I want to thank you for being here. And I want to ask you to please extend the invitation to people who you think might enjoy our sacred circle of connection. I'm trying to grow and beef up this community, which is why I'm going to go on more social media outlets, excuse me, as of next week. So if you have friends, family members who you think would benefit from these talks that you want to join, and so that we could have more of a conversation, invite them to join Art of Alignment Creative Leadership group page on Facebook, and soon to be on Instagram. And this week, a surprise, I'm changing the name of the group. So Nelson, my assistant, and I have been working diligently on creating some new content, a new presentation style. So that's coming next week. I cannot wait to see you next week. Stay tuned this week for my video newsletter on Thursday morning. It goes out at 7 a.m. I will have more information about what's coming towards the end of the year, certainly in January, and then next year, some big projects are coming to the fore. Thank you for joining me. You can tell your friends to also find me on YouTube. If you find me on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. You will find me there, Art of Alignment. Please subscribe to my channel, which helps me get more visibility. And then the algorithm gods, just make their magic in the background. And then I get to have more exposure and bring this wonderful content to the world so that we can create happier people. No matter what happens, we can still move through the lens of optimism and increase our quotient of happiness. Thank you so much for being here today. I love you all. So nice to see you too, Elise, as always. If you have any comments, any questions, please post in the Facebook group as well. Any type of interaction really helps to grow our group and the algorithm gods of all these social media outlets. I thank you. I love you. I hope to see you next week. Bye. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.